Okay, welcome. Today we talk about the future of Google Maps. In this session we are going to show you a few more things of the demo you just saw in the keynote, and then we'll go into the new API things that Mano and Ken are going to talk about. Did you like the demo? Yeah. Good. Hey. So my name is Bernie, and this is Yatin. He was the engineering lead on that project, and he's going to show you a few things. Thanks. So I thought we could look at three things that we couldn't show at the keynote. So one thing is the related places. You saw that I clicked on a museum, and then other museums showed up on the map, and then you could go on and explore and explore. So one cool thing is that it generates actually a map on the entire world. So there's a place here nearby called Monk's Kettle. People from San Francisco might know it. It's known for a great beer selection. It's a really great pub, has a great beer selection. And you see now that I searched for it, all other places show up that like Gestalt is a bar nearby that also has a great beer selection. If I zoom out, I'll get more places like that. Seven Hills, Daily Grill, they're all great. But one cool thing is I can go further and further. And then I can, for example, go and zoom into Austin. Anyone here from Austin? Yeah, right here. Okay, so we'll see whether this actually works, but you're verifying that those places are good. So now we see that the East Side showroom shows up, and the Contigo, and before I got some, the Flying Saucer Draft Emporium. That sounds pretty. Is that right? Good. Okay. See, so we generated a whole map for the entire world that is now about bars with great beer. Isn't that great? Right, so Yatin is going to show you another one of those photo tours.
So Bernie showed you a photo tour of the inside of the Vatican. What I'm going to show you is another photo tour that takes us to an even larger scale. So you can see that we can sort of make this thing work, not just for a single landmark like the St. Peter's Basilica, but even an entire city's worth of information. So this here is a view of the Houses of Parliament in the center of London. And I am going to start the photo tour. And just watch how it sort of shows you a little bit of the Houses of Parliament. And now it starts to turn around, and you see Big Ben right in the corner over there. And it's going a little further away, showing you a little bit more. Actually, that wasn't the Big Ben. That was the other tower at the other end. There now you start to see the Big Ben. These are views of the Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament taken from the London Eye by users just like you, uploaded to Google, and here's the entire city of London seamlessly stitched together into a very, very compelling 3D experience. And Jonah Jones, who was helping Bernie with the demo live at the keynote, and I are going to have a full session on how some of the technical and design details of the new Google Maps work. This will be on Friday, I believe, at 9 a.m. So come join us there if you have more questions. And I'll hand it back to Bernie to show you just one other tidbit from the new Google Maps.
Okay, thanks. So we used actually cinematic principles to steer the camera. The algorithm knows sort of the dramatic effects that are required to get to the stage and so on. It's really cool. So you should definitely go. So I have a question. Does anybody know what happened last Thursday afternoon? Anyone from Australia here? You cheated. Nobody? Yell it out. Very well. Good. So what we're going to do now is we go and change the system time to last Thursday, a little bit later. I think like 5 p.m. would be good. Okay. So we go back here. What is happening? Oh. So let's go to Earth. We start zooming out. See the world. So now that we look here at the sun, we see that there's a little black spot here. So that's the moon. And then we turn around. So I told you that the stars and the Milky Way and the sun are in the correct position, so is the moon. And it's actual simulation of the sunlight going to Earth, and the moon is in the middle. So we saw this solar eclipse. And actually, we were just practicing the keynote last Thursday, and we looked at the screen and we're like, shit. Why do we have a black spot on Earth? And then we just turned around and we're like, why is there a black spot? Oh! Then we went online and there was indeed a solar eclipse. So that was quite funny. Anyway, so this is, well, I wouldn't suggest that you should change your system time all the time, but it's like one of the neat things. So wait for the next eclipse and then just go online. So it will be easier. So okay, with that, go back to the slides. I think I just pressed the wrong. Oh.
The laptop might have.
Ah. Yes. Okay, thanks. And so here's the agenda that I should have told you before. I guess these were the 3 interesting things about the new Google Maps, and then you'll get an update on the new Google Maps APIs and the next million maps. And before I hand over, I'd like to recommend you sign up or recommend to your friends our online courses, and they go through how you use this new Google Maps, Maps Engine Lite, and Google Earth. Just go to g.co/mapping course, and it will be online courses, massive online courses that you can take and help you learn a lot. Okay, thanks.
All right, so my name is Ken. I'm product manager for the Google Maps APIs based in Sydney. And I'm going to talk to you a bit about some new things we have coming up in the Google Maps APIs. So as I do that, I'm just going to tackle the obvious question. I've seen it asked on Twitter a number of times already, and just not beat around the bush and tackle it straight up, which is, are you going to announce a new Google Maps API right now? And the answer I have to give you, unfortunately, is no. Remember that the new Google Maps that was just demoed in the keynote and that Bernie and Yatin have demoed now is a preview. That's not to say that we won't at some point announce an API based on the new Google Maps, but you need to remember that this technology is actually quite nascent, and we still have a lot to do with the product before we can think about giving it to third parties. So that's the bad news. The good thing is I do have an announcement, and I think this is an announcement that you'll find really compelling, and it may just be sort of the largest sort of visible change that we've introduced to the Google Maps APIs in the last 8 years that we've been around. To do that, I'm going to set up by taking a look at what the Google Maps API version 2 looked like circa 2006. Now, you can see on this map sort of the familiar pieces of the Google Maps API. The red pin, the info window, the same kinds of familiar yellow and blues of the Google Map base map. The info window, as you can see, circa 2006, had nice rounded corners, as all good Web 2.0 products did at that time, as well as we had an incredibly large shadow, which was also popular in Web 2.0 in 2006 era. And if you flip forward to Google Maps API circa 2013, can anyone spot the difference? I'll flip back, flip forward. We squared off the corners on the info window, certainly, so Web 2.0 is over. We still have the same pin. We still essentially have the same info window. We still have the same design of base map. We introduced Street View, of course, in 2007, and that came into the API. When we relaunched version 3 of the JavaScript Maps API, we actually added support for mobile. But essentially, what you're seeing between these two, 2006 and 2013 in 7 years, is essentially the same product. Loads of new features, but essentially the same look. Now, when you compare this to the new Google Maps, which we've been talking about a lot already today, you see a completely new experience in the new Google Maps. The base maps are a completely different design and set of colors. The marker is different. There are no info windows really anymore. Everything is sort of pulled to cards onto the left-hand side of the screen. And the control experience is completely different as well. We have a carousel down at the bottom of the map rather than the zoom slider that you've come to get used to on the left-hand side of the map. And when you look at the mobile applications that were discussed in the keynote today as well, they've also undergone a redesign that aligns more closely with the new Google Maps we were talking about earlier. Again, then you flip over to the Google Maps API, and I think I've kind of beat the dead horse here long enough, but it's time for a new look. We're stuck in 2006 on Nokia N95s, waiting for Wii's. This is what was happening in 2006, while the rest of Google Maps has moved along ahead of us. So here's what we're going to introduce. It's called google.maps.visualRefresh equals true. This is one line of code, which is a global property, which you can add to your JavaScript on your page. And what it will do is it'll change the look and feel of the JavaScript Maps API. To illustrate, I've just pulled up the picture that I was showing you earlier. When I apply google.maps.visualRefresh equals true, this is what you get. So it's the same Google Maps API that you've come to get used to, and that's on now 1 million sites we announced earlier, but it's been refreshed with a brand new, more beautiful design inspired by the work that's been done in the mobile applications and now the new Google Maps. So these are the same base tiles that are used in the new Google Maps, but rendered as images, not rendered as vector tiles in the browser. So we've taken the same design for the base maps that's been used in the new Google Maps and the mobile applications and brought it into the JavaScript Maps API. That's what I was going to talk about here in one of the 4 major changes. The second major change that we've introduced is a new default marker. So you would have seen on that screen that we've removed the shadow from the marker that you've kind of come to know and love, and we've brought in the marker that's now the default in the new Google Maps. The info windows, which I had commented on a number of times earlier, have also undergone a change. The new info window is a much fresher, lighter look and feel. The shadow was gone on the info window as well. And finally, the controls have undergone slight change, just a fresh coat of CSS to bring them into 2013. Now, it's important to note that this is a seamless transition and has been carefully designed to be so. So it's just one line of code that you add to any Maps API application, and it'll just enable the new look and feel. Any custom markers, custom info windows, custom tile overlays, custom map types, anything that you've done to customize your map will stay the same and will work as intended. So this is just a transition of the UI elements. And to illustrate, I've just thrown up a picture of More Than a Map showcase site that we have, which I'll demo in a second. We've upgraded to the new look and feel just in the last half hour. And of course, we have another API, the Static Maps API, which we've added the refresh to as well. It's a simple URL parameter and visual refresh equals true. So with that, let's flip to demo. So here what I've got, if you can see, is a side-by-side view of the classic Google Maps API. If I can get this control to work. Open a new tab. See if I can remember my URL. Apparently that works. So I've got side by side on the left the classic version of the Google Maps JavaScript API, and on the right a refresh version. And these are running exactly the same code, except for the global property has been set on the right. So you can see the older tiles on the left, a lot more yellow on the right. This is the new design that's been introduced in the new Google Maps. If I zoom in, you'll see the same style of maps as Bernie was showing earlier, with the same icons, etc. We don't have the luxury of rendering vectors in the browser and creating a new map for every place, but we do have the same look and feel that we can bring into the API. If I open the info window, you can see side by side the difference of the info windows. In satellite mode, we've also changed the labels in the hybrid view so that they're freshened up with the new Google Maps look and feel. And everything else you can see remains the same. So Pegman can still be dragged onto the map. That works. and everything is as expected. If you flip over to a couple other different places, here London, and I show you on the map, you can see how the new look and feel of the base maps actually really does change the look of a Maps API application. In this case, it's a much fresher look. So what I'm going to do now, to prove to you that this is actually available now, you can go change your site now, is go to morethanamap.com, which is our showcase site for the Maps API. Flip over to demos, your base maps, and there it is. So it works. And if I click on styled maps also still work the way they did before. And I guess the point I'm getting at here is that in some ways this is a non-announcement. It's one line of code that changes the important things but doesn't change all the customizations that you've created. Routing here as well works. Go to elevation in San Francisco. Again, it all looks as you would expect, but we have a much brighter, fresher look to the API. Cool, I'll step back to my deck over here. Great. Now, talk a little bit about availability. As I mentioned in the demo with morethanamap.com, this is available now. It's available on both our experimental and release branches for you to opt into. And we're going to take this new look and feel by default to the rest of the million Maps API sites on the web. And the way that works is it will become default on the experimental branch in 3 months' time in August. And then 3 months later on the release branch, which is the default branch for our enterprise customers in November. Okay, that's it for the announcement of the refresh. The other thing I wanted to talk about was to expand a bit on the numbers that Brian announced in the keynote. And the numbers he announced were that we now have 1 million Maps API sites and apps. And the other is that these million API sites and maps are viewed by 1 billion unique visitors a week. Just sort of wrap your head around that one while I do the little spinning animation. To help you contextualize how big these numbers are and why we think this is so important to us is, sometimes we don't think about the scale and reach of the Maps API. Keir Clark, I don't know if he's in the audience, but he generally reviews around 3 sites or apps per day on the Google Maps Mania blog. If he were to continue to do that at that rate, it would take him 1,000 years to review all of the Maps API sites in the world. We now have Google Maps in 200 countries. If you do simple math, 1 million divided by 200, you get 5,000, which means there are roughly 5,000 of the Maps API sites in every country in the world. And the last stat here that I want to throw up there, because I think it's the most interesting, especially given what Larry was talking about today in the keynote about bringing the internet to the rest of the world, and a number of people have talked about today. If we take that there are roughly 2.5 billion people on the internet, and we know that we get 1 billion unique visitors to Maps API sites every week, we can't exactly correlate unique visitors to people because mobile networks sometimes mean that multiple people hide behind the same IP address, and perhaps a number of us in the audience here and myself use multiple devices in a day. So it's really hard to kind of work that out. But we do know if we look at our numbers across a month, we can very, very confidently say that half the internet sees a Google Maps API map every month. So this is quite an incredible distribution. And as we talk about that, it's interesting to think about what kind of maps are these maps that make up the million, right? We've used hotel booking sites, we've used real estate sites, but they don't make up the 1 million. The 1 million has typically been made up of really kind of local, innovative, inspirational maps that developers have created themselves because they had an idea or they saw a need in a local community. That's how you get 1 million around the world. You do that in every country of the world and you'll get 1 million sites. And so I just threw up an example here. This is a transit simulator from Brașov, which is a city in Romania. Now, how many of you have heard of Brașov? I see one hand. Brașov is a city of about 350,000 people in Romania. Somebody in the city released transit data, and then somebody else in the development community created a map and an interactive simulator of that transit data. This kind of thing has been happening around the world 1 million times. Here's another interesting map. This is an aid map from Haiti by an organization that's a coalition of NGOs who are providing aid after the earthquake in 2010 in Haiti. And what they do is they use this map to collaborate on sharing information about the projects that they're doing so that they can work more effectively together. In this case, this is an example of how people have used maps and the ability to overlay their own content on the maps for their specific use case in a way that saves lives. This is an application, Plane Finder, which, if you remember the opening video in the keynote, was actually featured there. It's a data visualization. Developers have been creating data visualization since the API, the Maps API came out. This one's fascinating that you click on any airport in the world and it creates this firework explosion in your browser showing you where all the planes go. It's fascinating. There's another one here. We talk about ways that people have used the Google Maps API with mashing it with other bits of data to create really compelling and important visualizations. This is a map of articles in Wikipedia that reference a place or are articles of a place. And the points on the map are colored based on how many words have been written about that place. And what you get, effectively, is a population density map. It's fascinating. Here's another one, just to illustrate the ways that the Maps API has been enabling communities. There's loads of typography on buildings in London. Now, I'm not a typography specialist or generally a person who spends a lot of time looking at it, but there are a lot of people in London who do, it turns out, and important for them is to document this and share it. Well, of course, they've used a Google Maps API map. Instant Street View is an interesting application that we saw show up. This is where people have started to take the Maps API beyond just a basic map. And Instant Street View here, it works like Google Instant. You just start typing in and it takes you to different places in the world in Street View. And finally, GeoGuessr. How many of you have played GeoGuessr? See, loads of hands, loads of hands. Fascinating. This is the latest viral site we've seen created with the Maps API. A very simple concept is they show you a bit of Street View from somewhere in the world. And your job is to click on the map where you think the Street View was taken. And you get points based on how close you were to the right location. It's incredibly educational and insanely addictive. So if you haven't played it, go try it out. You know, it's been these kinds of applications that have really inspired us. So what we decided to do is put together a little video tribute, which I'm going to roll now and set up Mano Marks, who will come and talk about the next million maps.
Wow.
Oh, sorry, I presaged my slide. Wow. I've been on the Maps team and the Maps on Earth team since 2006, so about 7 years now. And I get teary when I see that video. I get moved by the incredible changes that we've made in the developers world, but also in the world of the internet. In 2005, 2006, the Mashup Revolution was born, and it started with people developing apps with the Google Maps API. That was the first monster mashup. People realized that they could take services that that a major corporation was providing for free and mash them up with their own data. We've moved a long way since then, as you've seen from the samples that Ken has shown. But basically, it's taking the power of maps and putting them in the hands of developers and putting them in the hands of people in the world. I didn't do a little spinny thing on the wow like Ken did, but that's because I'm just spinning in my heart. Okay, so what I want to talk to you about now is the next million apps, the next million maps, and how we are taking maps to new platforms. You saw the new Google Maps in the keynote, the preview, and you saw it in Bernie's talk here. And what has become pretty clear to us, and also to pretty much everywhere, and is that mobile is the future, except it's not the future. Mobile is not the future anymore. Mobile is the present. And when Google Maps started, it was enough to serve map tiles to a browser, and that was pretty revolutionary at the time. But we've looked beyond that, and since the launch of Android, we've been putting maps into the hands of mobile users. But what we really want to do is put the same mapping experience and the same map data into the hands of every user on a major platform. So you see here we have web, mobile, Android and iOS SDKs. So we're really excited that these are our major platforms. These are what you can see right now and what you can develop on right now. And the reason for that is that mobile data is about 13% of global internet traffic, according to Mary Meeker's Internet Trends report. 13%, but that's up considerably just from last year. And in some places in the world, it is the majority of internet traffic. So we want to put powerful mapping experiences and powerful map data that Google has and at Google scale into your hands. So when I say on location, what I'm really talking about is this concept of on location. That your app is about more than just identifying where somebody is, but it's about giving them the entire context in which they are right now. It's about giving them data. It's about giving them, as you've seen, this idea of where are they going? Not just knowing. When you're building an app, you don't want to just know where somebody is, and you don't want to just ask them where they're going. Know where they're going. Get contextual information from your users and build that into your applications. Now we see on the Maps team that there are actually, we believe, 3 components to this. Now there's the powerful visualization technologies in the browser and on Android and iOS. There's also our on-location services. So we've talked a lot for years about our Places API, our Directions API, our Geocoding API, all of which can be used on a Google Maps application. And we started recently talking about this data platform, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, because I want to update you on the visualization platform. Now, as I mentioned before, maps have been about serving map tiles to a client application that then just simply renders those map tiles. That's what maps have been in the browser. That's what maps have been on mobile devices. But in 2011, we released vector mapping on Android, and in 2012, we released it on iOS. So mobile actually took this idea of vector mapping, took this technology, and this was the first place we were able to start using it. And an awfully creaky stage. This is the first place that you were actually able to get vector mapping. And why is vector mapping important? Because it can do all those interesting things that you saw Bernie demonstrate. You can render data on the fly and respond to user inputs without having to worry about round tripping once again to the server to get data back in and shove it back into your application. So that gives you really interesting things like camera animation, and I want to actually give a quick demo of that. If I can find my demo now. Okay, all right, the demo was loaded into the other machine. Never mind, I'm gonna move on. But basically allowing you to do many of the kinds of animations that you've seen, both in the video and live. We've shown you these kind of animations where you can zoom in, see these 3D buildings, tilt and pan the map in a very smooth way. And we're going to be talking a lot about those in the two mobile sessions, the two dedicated mobile sessions. Ken? I don't know why that happened. So the two dedicated mobile sessions on iOS and Android today and tomorrow, as well as throughout many of our different sessions the next couple of days. So we have 17 sessions and one code lab that will be taking place in the next few days. So I want to announce today that we're making updates to both the Android and iOS APIs. So the Android API got pushed. It was announced actually in the keynote with the new Google Play Services update. You will get a new version of the Android API, the Google Maps Android API v2. And we're also announcing that today we're releasing version 1.3 of the Google Maps SDK for iOS. So the Android API, as you know, is built into Google Play Services, which means that any device that has Google Play Services automatically gets updated. You get, without you having to do any work. So any updates, any improvements, bug fixes, performance management that we can add, automatically updated in the app. And it brings the power of the consumer Google Maps vector rendering engine into your applications. When we released in 2011 Google Maps for Android, the first thing that developers asked is, how can I use this in my applications? Now, starting in November, you can. And the Google Maps SDK for iOS is a static library that you can download and incorporate into your applications. And it brings in the power of the Google Maps application for iPhone, and it is available on both iPhone and iPad devices. And it allows for very easy integration with Google Apps, and also allows you to therefore use Google's services on your Google Maps. And we also launched a URL scheme that allows you to launch the Google Maps application for iPhone directly from your application if you don't want to use the SDK. But let's talk a moment about this data platform. There's a couple of things that I want to highlight. The first is the Tracks API. So imagine you have an application that does tracking of your users, or some asset or something. An application that, say, is a social application so that you can track where your friends are located. Now imagine you wanted to know minute by minute where somebody using your application is. Think about how many queries one person would be sending to your server in a day. Say they're using it for 10 hours. That's an easy calculation. So once a minute for an hour times 10. That's a lot of pings per person. Now imagine your application is used by 5,000 or 10,000 people to track where their friends are at any moment. And you want to know at a frequency more frequent than once per minute. That's a lot of queries hitting your server just to collect location information for individuals. We've set up the Tracks API that allows you to do just that. It allows you to present information about, to collect information about your users in Google's cloud anonymously, and then be able to track those users as they go. So pulling down location information for each individual from Google's cloud without straining your resources, because we've figured out how to do these sorts of things. The other data platform that I'd like to mention is Google Maps Engine. Brian called this out in the keynote, and we're really excited about the Google Maps Engine platform. Now, Maps Engine is a platform for uploading your geodata to our cloud services and then serving that data out in the same infrastructure, in the same way that we serve out data. So if you want to collaboratively work on an application, on a set of data with a bunch of other people across the globe, and you want to use high-end GIS data, and you don't necessarily, not all your users are necessarily going to be developers, they might simply be users. You can then load those up and then build those out to scale so that you can serve out your data to a large number of users. And one of the reasons why this is important is because, again, we get into these queries per second. So if you have an application, I'm going to say you are a local government officer, and you have a GIS shop for, say, the city of New York. And a hurricane or some other kind of disaster comes, a bunch of people might be hitting your site to find out information about how to, where to find shelters, where to evacuate, all that sort of thing. If all of that is running off of Google's data centers, which are replicated around the world, you don't have to worry that your servers are going to go down, because it's served over the same infrastructure that we use to serve out Google Earth and Google Maps. And then we allow you to communicate that to your users. You choose how many and who. You can, it's basically like Google Docs. You can choose to share it with only a few people. You can share it broadly. You can share it with just a URL. And then you can, you can serve that out to as many people as you want. And you can serve it out on whatever devices that you want to reach, people to reach as well. And we announced last week that we also added a new API for it. This allows you to programmatically interact with the Google Maps Engine platform, so you can upload data and you can edit data, you can interact with your data dynamically in the Google Maps Engine platform. Now, we have traditionally sold this to large enterprises, but we wanted to we frequently get asked at Google I/O, well, how can I play with it? And the great news is that you can play with it today. Go to if you're here at Google I/O, go to the Google Maps sandbox and ask them to sign you up for an account for Google Maps Engine, and we will give you a test account that will allow you to develop using the Google Maps Engine platform. And then and it'll have API access, and you can also serve out that data on top of the Google Maps JavaScript API using a Maps data layer. So we're really excited that you're going to get a chance to play with the newest, the latest and greatest data platforms that we have on at Google. And I should also mention that the Tracks API is free to play with as well for a limited number of assets that you're tracking. So if you want to get started, with the developer experience at Google Maps, go to developers.google.com/maps. And also, some of us will be in the sandbox for the next 3 days. We're really excited to talk to you about our new platforms and how you're going to get started using our APIs. Thank you. I'm not going to take questions. Sorry. Yeah, it's 7. We have 7 minutes left. So, you want to take questions? Ken will take questions, and I will take questions too. Apparently, we are taking questions.
Well, we have 7 minutes time, so before everyone runs out.
So we have, if you want to ask a question, please come to one of the mics here and ask. Yes, if you have a question, come to.
Yeah. With the new Google Maps API and the ability to visualize the buildings in 3D, are you going to be able to provide rendering solutions for people who want to render stereoscopically?
So I think something might have got lost in the translation there. The update that we have to the Google Maps API is about an update to the base map tiles, and we're not introducing any 3D functionality at this time.
But in the mobile APIs, we have 3D buildings built in.
Okay.
We don't currently have a solution on mobile for rendering things stereoscopically.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, question here. On Apple Maps for iOS, you're allowed to inject your own map layer on top,
Yes.
but it doesn't seem that we're able to do that in the iOS Google Maps app or anything like that, whereas Google is taking the approach.
Are you talking about a tile layer of some kind?
Yeah, sure. But whereas Google is taking the approach of allowing you to inject like the Google Maps into your own app. I was wondering if you could comment on whether or not that feature is expected to be available in the future.
Oh, I'm sorry. You mean it's built into the Apple Maps application? Yeah. We can't comment on future features for Google Maps. We're really excited that people can build this though into their own applications.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
Yeah, it's good. I have a question about the Tracks API. How different Google Latitude API and Tracks API? Tracks API for only RESTful API?
Sorry, how different is the Tracks API from the?
So how different Latitude and Tracks API?
Oh, Latitude. So the Tracks API is designed specifically for developers who want to not be tied to other Google apps like Latitude or Coordinate. They want to build out their own, and it's simply you assign an ID and you give a location and then you upload bunches of crumbs of that. And then you build out your own visualization.
I'd say the simplest difference is Latitude was about tracking people, and the Tracks API is about tracking anything that moves. So you can put a GPS sensor on anything and call it an asset and track it in the Tracks API.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, so I know, can I go first?
Yes, in the back.
So I know this sounds kind of crazy, but So can Google Maps API be extended to have a map of, say, Lord of the Rings, or like make a searchable Middle Earth map using, like, I don't know, make a searchable Middle Earth using Google Maps?
A searchable Middle Earth?
Yeah.
Yes, people have done that, as a matter of fact, using tile overlays to lay them on top of Google Maps. So yeah, in fact, you can. And if you can get GPS to work, you could do it on a mobile device. If you can get GPS to work in Middle Earth.
So the Google Maps API has been based on an assumption that it's got the Earth underneath it, but that assumption doesn't need to hold. So you can create effectively the same patchwork of tiles for some other world, which we used to have in the API for Mars and the Moon. So if you can create that and find that map for Middle Earth, then you can definitely use the Maps API for it.
Yeah, and you would create a custom map type, and you basically provide a mapping between what your world coordinates are and latitude and longitude, so that the Maps API knows how to interact with it. Yeah, check out GTA4.net/map. You'll see the Grand Theft Auto map rendered using the Maps API with custom Street View.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's very cool. Sorry, oh yeah, of course you can also use GME, Google Maps Engine, to do it as well. Yes.
This is a little bit bigger picture, I suppose, but you talked about the progression from tiles to vectors, and then to today's announcements of all the search and intent and what you're going to be doing next as part of Maps. Where did that come from, and was it always kind of something that was being developed at Maps? The kind of new direction for Maps as a contextual and
Do you want to answer that,
very
Brian?
intent-based tool.
We have the man here.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry to make you get up.
Sorry. I'll just talk really loud. And
Sure.
speak here. So I think the intent and search base is something that Google overall has been working on. And what we've discovered is that local data and Maps data are kind of at the center of so many of your walk around carrying the phone intent. So many of the demos you saw from the search group were actually about local data. And I think that Maps, as we start to, as you get to start to implement geofences and the better location and the motion models, I think there's a lot of things that we'll be able to do, and your application will be able to do with that information.
Thank you.
Just me. My question's about Google Earth. So I've seen there's a lot of innovation with Google Maps. It's kind of bringing more three-dimensional features in, especially the zoom out to space. It reminded me of Google Earth. Can you comment on what the role between Google Maps and Google Earth is, or is going to be?
It's basically the same team of people working on both applications. We're in pretty early stages now with the new Google Maps, and we're seeing a lot of evolution of the base platforms, the web and Earth. We can't announce right now any changes to any other platforms that we haven't already announced. But yeah, we're really excited about the possibilities that WebGL bring us, but also we have over 1 billion installs of Google Earth around the world and a very active user base.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I've kind of a higher level question that I don't know is fair to ask you guys, but I'm going to anyway. You're delivering the new Maps APIs through the Google Play services rather than through sort of platform level changes. I got the sense that that was coming out at a broader level for not just the Maps APIs, but other stuff as well. And I'm assuming that this is driven by platform updates by OEMs and operators. Is this kind of a broader strategy that Google is looking at in terms of keeping the Android platform fresh for developers, but not being bound to the OEMs and operators?
In a simple word, yes. I think that the advantage of Google Play Services is the advantage of any sort of DLL dynamic link library. We can update it, with new features or bug fixes, and affect the entire installed base. Google Play Service is going all the way back to Froyo. Not everything goes back to Froyo, but many things go back to Froyo and Gingerbread.
Right.
And that really gives a much wider opportunity for developers than waiting for Jelly Bean version 2 to come out.
Do you guys see that extending even further beyond what was announced today, or is that kind of like a broader endemic API strategy?
The first version of Play Service came out a few months ago, and I think a bunch of stuff was saved up for today.
Okay.
But I think it's an ongoing process.
Okay, thank you.
think we'll take this as last question because we're 1 minute
Okay,
over
quick
now.
one. So one of the nice features is being able to take our own KML file and have it integrated on Google Maps rather than just implementing Google Maps on our own website. Do you have additional features with the latest Google Maps version which allow for more context-specific retrieval of data in KML, or is there any sort of back and forth that we can do to allow for that interaction to be more intelligent?
We don't have anything to announce at this point around KML rendering in the new Google Maps. So certainly, KML is a standard that we helped pioneer through Keyhole and then Google Earth, and we gave away to the world, and we're still committed to it, and it's a very exciting to us. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thanks a lot, everyone, and see you in the sandbox.